Hey gamers, what's going on? Kyle here. I'm the host of Game Time, the show about all generation of video games and video game consoles. Today we're going to be doing a part one of what we're going to be calling some of the best compilation sets. And compilation games, for those of you who don't know, and that's alright, is pretty much kind of a bunch of great games all compiled on to one disc or one cartridge, usually from the same company or at least same system. You've probably seen, like in the past, Namco museum games. Those are all great arcade games from Namco, Galaga, Pac-Man, Dig Dug, etc. So this is first and probably a series because there's a lot of great compilation sets out there and quite a few that we have yet to pick up, but we probably will as time goes on. I thought I'd start off on one of my favorite handhelds ever, the PSP, Sony PSP. I got 4 games right here. These aren't the only 4 compilation sets for the PSP, but I feel these are 4 that really stick out. There's quite a few others, and the best part about this being a series of videos is we get to do more of them in the future. So if you don't see your favorites, don't worry. We will still get a chance to do them on a future episode. But I thought I'd start off. We're going to be taking a look at what games are on these games here, the collection of games, and maybe a couple minutes of gameplay for 1 or 2 random games on the collection. We'll start off with the Neo Geo collection. This is the SNK Arcade, sort of 16 great Neo Geo games. I do like that system, and we got some good ones here, and that will be started off. We'll go next to the Sgea Genesis collection for the PSP. Obviously, we're going to be seeing some stuff like Sonic on here. Fantasy Star 2, 3, and 4, Gain Ground is a game I really like. We'll take a look at some on there. Golden Axe, I believe, is also on there. Speaking of Namco Museum, I did throw one of those in here on the PSP version. And mostly because I like, I think there's a great collection of games here. There's 20 arcade games as well as some arrangement style games. And you'll see that those are a little bit later in the video. But I like the collection of games that are on this, and I think it was a really great deal. And we'll be ending this episode with the Midway Arcade Treasures Extended Play. And they actually did a sort of trilogy of these games sort of on the last gen consoles, PS2, Xbox, GameCube. They did like a collection of 3 games for that. And this is sort of a greatest hits version. We're going to see games like Spy Hunter and Clax, Joust, Rampage on there, Gauntlet, some Paperboy and Defender. So we'll be taking a look at what other games are on there. And yeah, that's our collection of games that we'll be showcasing here on part 1 of the best compilation sets. And these are our PSP collections, and we'll do them next on Game Time. Alright, Game Timers, our first one, as we said, is from SNK here, the Neo Geo collection. And sorry for the shoddy recording. There's no really great way to record like DS or PSP games now without spending, I think, quite a bit of money and whatnot. And, yeah, the channel's not really worth that much money. So here we go, yeah, SNK Arcade Classics Volume 1 came out, actually several years ago. They've, yet to the best of my knowledge, never created a Volume 2, so I don't know. Hopefully we can see some more Neo Geo classics for maybe now the Vita and whatnot, these next-gen consoles. Maybe we can get a long-awaited Volume 2. One thing being Neo Geo for games from the 90s, it's not in widescreen. It's just kind of a square screen formation. Some of these games there. We'll just skip over that. We'll take a look at the list of games, and then we'll try at least one for sure. Maybe can squeeze in a second game. We can do that. So, PSP load times, of course, not the best, but still not too bad for at the time it was released. So. Starts off with Metal Slug. Everyone knows the classic Metal Slug, so we don't need to play too much into that one. That if you have a Neo Geo, that is essential gaming material right there. Neo Turf Masters, actually a very nice arcade style golf game. You can see a couple, looks like screenshots there, or at least a screenshot. My God, there's a couple of them. Pretty good. Samurai Showdown. A lot of these, excuse me. A lot of these games will be sort of fighting games. That was something the Neo Geo was very known for. You might have seen games like Sgea versus Capcom, a couple of those titles. So a lot of these will be fighting games, maybe a side-scroller beat 'em up or two. It looks like this one is a beat 'em up game. I really like those, especially from the mid-90s, early mid-90s. And what's this one? Sengoku, something like that. Shock Troopers, kind of a fun little game there too, almost very much like a Metal Slug type game. The Next Glory, Super Sidekicks 3, sort of a arcade soccer game or football for our European and rest of our world friends. King of Fighters 94, of course, more fighting games. A lot of recognizable characters in there. Top Hunter. I forget what this one's like. Okay, it's sort of like similar to a Metal Slug type game too. I think for this one here, you actually have 2 levels. You can kind of switch up and down between levels, so it's kind of a 2-story playground there. Art of Fighting, another classic Neo Geo fighting game there. Baseball Stars 2. I kind of forget exactly how this plays out. It's obviously very arcadey. I know I have played it at some point, but I kind of forget. Also on the side here, I kind of like that. On the side you can see, that's co-op or 2 players. You can see what year it was made and some medals you get for games. Kind of like your achievements or trophies. So, Burning Fight, classic. I think it's a side-scroller beat 'em up if I remember. Let's see one more screenshot here. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think it was. I remember playing quite a bit of this one then when I first picked up this collection of games. So, Fatal Fury, King of Fighters, sort of another one there, so we don't need to go too much into that one. As you can see, that's a Versus there, made in 91. King of the Monsters there, sort of a fighting game. Last Resort. This one's sort of a shoot-'em-up game, a shmup. Magician Lord, kind of like a platformer type game. Pretty fun. I like it. We might try that one. And that looks like the entire 16-game list there. So let's try Magician Lord here, just for a brief moment, and we'll move on. There you can see classic Neo Geo buttons there on the bottom, but PSP kind of represents that well because it does the 4-button layout as well, mostly using square and X. For some reason, square is kind of like the main button in these collection of games. So, let's start a new game there. Classic Neo Geo start screen, and there's Magician Lord. Let's give this one a go. You'll see kind of the old school platformer there. You can use the thumbstick or a little thumb pad here on the PSP, as well as the D-pad. So I'm just going to use the thumb pad or thumbstick there because that kind of feels joystickish. So we have our jump, we have our fire, and our other circle and triangle buttons don't do anything just yet. A little tricky there. Maybe I better stick to the D-pad there. There we go. So you kind of can see there. I'll turn up the volume here if I get a spare moment. That's the brightness. There we go. Slightly louder. A bit distracted there. Definitely the type of games I loved as a younger Kyle. So that's Magician Lord, kind of a fun little platformer there. It calls the game there. And then we'll move on to our next title. Alright, this is the Sgea Genesis collection for the PSP. We'll kind of skip the intro scene there. I can do a quicker job there. There we go. The wire line is currently off. You can actually do some wireless multiplayer. So here's the collection of games on this Sgea Genesis collection. Pretty decent collection, not the best we've ever seen. There's actually a PS3 version, sort of a Sonic and Sega collection. That had like 40 Sgea Genesis games, as well as like a dozen Master System games and a lot of special features. Highly, highly, highly recommended there. But anyway, very quickly then, Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and 2, of course. Super Thunderblade, Sword of Vermilion, Vector Man 1 and 2. I really like these games. I even have them for the Genesis themselves, sort of the Sgea Genesis version of Mega Man, if you will. Very Mega Man-ish. Virtua Fighter 2. There's Alex Kidd games, sort of Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle. Not a huge fan of them. That's pretty weird even for me. Altered Beast, Bonanza Brothers. I really like Bonanza Brothers, actually. Columns is in there, as well as a great platformer, very arcadey, very overlooked at times. Comics Zone, highly recommended. Deep Attack, Echo the Dolphin, both Echo games. Ties of Time as well as Echo Junior. Hard to personal opinion on the games. I really want to like Echo the Dolphin. I think something a little more unique, but the games themselves are a little weird. I just never really play a lot of them. Flicky, that's a very weird one. I don't know how to quite describe that. Game Ground, I highly recommend that one. Wayman shows us gameplay footage of this. All three Golden Axe games, so Golden Axe 1, 2, and 3. Golden Axe 3 I hear is a little bit more rarer. Kid Chameleon, Phantasy Star 2, 3, and 4. The first one was on the Sega Master System, but this is part of the Genesis collection. Ren Star, sort of a platformer type thing as well. He can kind of stretch his arms out, and that's where the gameplay goes. You can attack enemies from afar and climb, and etc., etc. Shadow Dancer, Shinobi 3 will end the list. Again, I really like the kind of shows what year these games came out. Pretty informative, actually. So that's a collection on there. It also has a museum. I think it's just for, yeah, each particular game would have their museum. We'll hit the R button there for some tips and original box art, I guess. So you can kind of see that's the Mega Drive version. Pretty cool, actually. Here's the US version. So each of those games has that. I think maybe some of them need to be unlocked, but let's do. I always talk about Game Ground, so we might as well do at least a moment or two of this. Alright, classic Sega load screen, and there we go, Game Ground. Like I said, we'll just do this, maybe a stage or two very briefly. So you can kind of choose what characters you got. You got the guy with the archer, you got the chick with tomahawks, it looks like, or some sort of machetes, and you got the guy who can shoot. So it'll be him here. And we move around the game. We press our X button to shoot, essentially there. Position ourselves just right to take care of these villains on screen. You can only shoot straight ahead of you, and you have to get a little bit closer. I think the guy who throws spears can actually shoot in any direction, so that's kind of an advantage there. And the chick can kind of move. I think she can only shoot forward too. Not as far, but maybe does a little bit more damage at closer range. So here we go, round 2. And you see, once you just clear all of our characters off screen, we'll do this guy here. Yeah, he can throw in any direction. Not very well, though. But it's a lot more shorter range. I don't think that's the guy first. Okay. As you've seen with the last screen there, the object is just to get all the characters off the screen. You're essentially moving up. You can also go, I got hit there. You can also just go straight to the exit here if you're so inclined, if you're in a hurry. So you can kind of forego and just bypass all the enemies on screen and just move straight to the exit. But you don't get as many points for that. So we'll do something like that. So there we go. We essentially went to the exit with one character. So now we can do that again. Pick up other characters there. Alright. Oh, she's kind of sort of a grenade type character. So that's pretty cool. So that's Gain Ground right there. And I made one character, of course, wasn't paying attention at anyways, but that is what Gain Ground looks like. You can see, definitely later on, you can see some of the levels will get pretty crowded and a little more hectic. But I really like this game. It's kind of fun. It's one that's, I think, overlooked, and I see why. I mean, it took me a long time to actually play it for the first time on my Genesis collection on the PS3, but when I did, I found it was kind of a fun little game. So I do like that. Gain Ground, and that's the Sgea Genesis collection. Alright, third out of 4 games is the Namco Museum Battle Collection, so that's a little bit different than some of the other Namco museums. I'll run through these pretty quickly. I noticed the video is starting to get just a little bit lengthier than I intended it to be. So a lot of us will recognize pretty much most all of these games. Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man. I love the little animations on the side, it's pretty neat. This is Galaxian. King and Balloon, that one might be a game that a lot of people are familiar with. That's more of a sort of a Galaxian type game. Galaga, of course, is one I think more people are familiar with. Rally X, as well as New Rally X, sort of, I think, Pac-Man-ish type games. Bosconian, another sort of space shooter, but you can kind of move around the entire screen. We'll actually play maybe a moment of that one as well. Dig Dug, as well as the not as familiar Dig Dug 2. A little bit different. You're kind of chopping up part of the island. You know, if we kind of drill off there, that portion of the island will go out, and there's enemies all around, so you kind of have to take care of the enemies that way. Xevious, I believe that's how you pronounce that. Xevious, something like that. Mappy, sort of another kind of type of Pac-Man game, only it's more vertically kind of bouncing around some platforms, collecting some of the items there. Tower of Draga, Dragon Blaster. So see, some of these now are a little bit more not as familiar. Gorbda? Motos. This is kind of a bumper cars type game. There's a little bit of a map, and you have your car there trying to bump off some of the enemies off the playing field. Rolling Thunder, sort of a platformer shooter, very advanced for an arcade game. And of course, game sharing, so you can share game samples or maybe a stage or two with another PSP user who might not have this particular game, so that's kind of neat there. And of course, you can do multiplayer. Here's the arrangement versions: Pac-Man arrangement, Galaga arrangement, New Rally X arrangement, as well as Dig Dug arrangement. Sort of, I don't want to say modern takes, but a little bit more graphically pleasing, a little bit more to each of the games too. Like Pac-Man, there's several stages with power-ups and whatnot. Galaga, they're just fun little pattern there. So let's, for this one, do literally, well, let's do, I think King and Balloon might be a little bit more of a rare game. So we'll try just a brief moment of King and Balloon. Again, sorry for the shakiness of the recording there. So you can see kind of a little arcade with one really neat feature here, and I really like this particular thing. On the options, you can go there, kind of set through your options there, but they have a screen rotation, and this is for I think all the main arcade games except for the arrangement versions, where you can actually get it horizontal, and then you can kind of stretch it there with full, and then all of a sudden, then you can turn it upside, not necessarily upside down, excuse me, but sideways, and then you use the D-pad and the thumbstick to kind of control your thing there. So we'll hit the X button. So there's our little thing we're shooting, and how do I shoot with the D-pad there? That's not working out too well. I gotta re-familiarize myself with the game there. So we'll just rotate back to our normal. There we go. You can see that's more like more of a Galaga type game there. Ships kind of coming down, and only they're balloons that are coming down there. And you got to save the king, that parachute. So if they start to take your king, you gotta shoot them down. So very sporadic, very challenging game. I know I'm not paying too much attention there. And we'll start our king there. So, but yeah, that's King and Balloon from Namco. Sort of very not as familiar with arcade games. So king got taken. We only have one more king left. And I think only one more ship left. I'm not sure if they keep track of the ships themselves or just the kings. But challenging game. I do like it. So King and Balloon, part of the Namco Museum Battle Collection for the PSP. Definitely fun because you can rotate the screen around, as well as game sharing with another PSP owner. You can do some multiplayer that way. So give it a thumbs up. I like it. Alright, last and but certainly not least up is the Midway Arcade Treasures. This is the extended play edition. Like I said at the preview of this video, they did sort of a collection of 3 games total for like PS2, Xbox era. The third one being mostly sort of arcade racing games. But this one sort of features the best of all 3. Maybe not so many racing games here, but we get the classic skateboarding game like 720. You can see some games have options. You can look at high scores if you were to keep high scores saved for your games here. On this particular PSP, I do not. So you can kind of look at high scores. Each games have some options to like controller setup, save, etc., etc. So let's take a look at our games here. I kind of went very out of order. Well, we'll just start here then. Defender, classic shoot 'em up game, one of the first and always one of the best. Still a little difficult to play. Gauntlet, of course, that one spawned many good sequels, and it all started with this classic arcade game. Wireless, as you can see here, this one you can actually play wirelessly with some friends as well. So very nice feature and very underrated on PSP. If only it actually sold a lot better than it did. It did do very good, but nah, I think the potential was a lot higher, and it could have been so much more. Joust, classic arcade game there. Clack's a fun little puzzle game there, sort of catching the tiles as they come down this conveyor belt. You kind of got to line up 3 colors in a row. Gets very hard very fast. Marble Madness, the classic get the marble to the edge of the maze type game. Very difficult. These games, of course, need no introduction. Mortal Kombat 1, 2, a very personal favorite. I remember back in the day, arcade here in town, people lined up to play this game when it was first new. And I was very young at the time, but I got caught up in the Mortal Kombat craze, and it was all because of that game there. Mortal Kombat 3, again, it shows the release date, so that's pretty nice. 1995 for that game. Can you believe that? 92, 93, 95. Paperboy, one of my favorite NES games. Spent a lot of time after coming home from grade school playing that game. So fun to have that part of the collection. Rampage, sort of monsters there, bashing, trying to shoot up and bash buildings there for points. Rampart, Sinistar, Spy Hunter, classic shoot 'em up game as well. Great music. Tubin. This one's kind of weird. You kind of almost have to use triggers to kind of control your tube. You're racing, racing an opponent down some raging rapids. Unique concept, but yeah, a little bit weird. Nice to have on the collection though. Wizard of War. This one's actually really fun. We might be doing this one. Xenophobe. Sort of a platformer shooter as well. Zybots is the best way to describe it is actually a third-person shooter, if anything. And here we go, kind of where we start off. 720 is sort of a skateboarding game, long before Tony Hawk. Arch Rivals. This game, actually, if you remember classic games like NBA Hang Time or the NBA Jam series, sort of in the mid-90s, Boom Shakalaka, and he's on fire. That's sort of some predecessors to this game. This is a 2-on-2 basketball type game. Championship Sprint, kind of like an Indy 500 on the Atari. What's the off-road game? Midway also did off-road, the little monster trucks that go around the dirt track. Pretty much similar to that. Cyberball 2072, sort of a futuristic football game, very arcadey. And here we are back at Defenders. So very nice collection of games here. Let's do just a brief moment, probably like 2 minutes probably, of, I always say brief moment, but it ends up being 2 or 3 minutes. Wizard of War. Well, let's take a look at load times on this. So I just hit the X button there. Loading up the game. This is the PSP 1000 model for our last 2 games, the Midway and Namco, the previous one. One of the first games that actually talked to you, too. 1980, here we go. So, you are this yellow guy here. The blue guy is AI controlled, and you're shooting these robots for points. You're kind of teaming up with the AI computer opponent as well as sort of against him. Like, you can shoot him, he can shoot you, etc. But the best way to go about it is kind of just to team up. You can use them to kind of take on some of the opponents there, like so. And there you go, and you kind of keep track as you go along. So I have 500, the computer has 800. Let's remedy that a little bit. We'll do another stage here. So we kind of go around this maze. So I shot the computer opponent. Now the game's a little bit quicker there. Oh, I didn't even see the thing coming behind me there. Now watch out for these things, they disappear quickly. Oh, that one almost had me. I don't know what happened. Not sure where it went. There it is. Normally the computer won't try to shoot you. As you see there, he had a clear shot of me. So I always feel kind of bad every time I shoot the computer opponent, because like he's not shooting me. Sort of teaming up. Ah, well, the main villain escaped there. I got a better score on that round. So yeah, that's pretty much Wizard of War there. Very fun game. If you can find it in the arcade or part of any other collection, definitely just a really fun game. You can kind of save your progress as well in this. So that will do it for the compilation sets here on the PSP. We did 4 games, and I know there's a few more. I know there's a pretty good Capcom one as well. And we'll get to a lot more of these in the future as well for other systems. I have some good ones for the like PS2 and Xbox to show you as well. So we'll do those on future episodes. As for now, just leave a comment on a great compilation set you think that you really enjoy or you think we should feature on this show. And we'll go from there. Otherwise, thanks for everybody for watching. Thanks for liking the video if you have. And we'll see you next time on Game Time.